Hi, this is Guy Harris. Welcome to Talk Like a Leader. This week's episode is titled Avoiding Logical Fallacies, Black or White, and Middle Ground. These two logical fallacies come from the website yourfallacy.is. They didn't create the logical fallacies, they're documenting them. And that's connected to the series that I'm doing around the idea of the rules of civil conversation, which is from the website, therulesofcivilconversation.org. And I've taken two logical fallacies that are described at this website, yourfallacy.is. And I've attempted to position them in a way so we can see how these logical fallacies might creep into our thinking as leaders. And because they creep into our thinking as leaders, they can then affect how we communicate as leaders. So let me just read to you the definitions from yourfallacy.is, the brief summary of these two logical fallacies. The first is black or white, which is when two alternative states are the only possibilities when in fact more possibilities exist. The second is middle ground, which says that you assume a compromise or a middle point between two extremes is the truth or is the best answer to a problem. The challenge with both of these, and I put these together because they're both connected to, I guess you'd call it a sort of binary thinking we apply to problem solving, to communication, to leadership challenges in general. We tend, as human beings, now the problem that we have to confront is these are human being issues. That doesn't mean you're a faulty human if these creep into your thinking. It means you're a human. Because the truth is, I have to wrestle with how to keep these two sort of seductive ways of thinking from creeping into my thinking as well. And so what I want to do is share some ideas with you about how they can flavor the way you approach things with people and how they can then create problems in the way you communicate, talk like a leader, and ultimately in your influence as leader. So the idea is this, that both of these, like I said, can creep into your thinking as a leader. They affect how you think about other people or about yourself. Now, I'm not going to dig into all the details of all the different ways this can creep into your thinking. I'm really just going to give you one key example and then touch on one or two others as some things to think about as you go forward in this week and think about how you can get these logical fallacies out of your thinking, how you can be on guard for them so you can protect yourself from these sort of naturally occurring things that happen in the way we perceive and interpret the world. So let me share with you a leadership situation where the logical fallacy can get in your way. And here's one I've heard in my work in Bud to Boss workshops, in DISC communication training workshops, and coaching workshops, where leaders will say things like this. Well, people are either motivated or they're not. Or I've heard variations like, this person just isn't very motivated, which if you think about it, there's a built-in assumption there that there is a binary state here, either motivated or not. And the challenge with that is that while a person might not be motivated to achieve the things you're interested in them achieving, it doesn't mean that they are inherently unmotivated. In fact, I would argue that everyone is motivated for some reason to do something. The challenge from a leadership perspective is, how do we figure out what is a motivating factor for a person, and how do we align that with the goals of the organization, the goals of the business? So what happens is that a person might be motivated to accomplish one type of task that maybe isn't the one of concern for you, and they are motivated to accomplish a different type of task. Or maybe the specific work you're asking them to do isn't motivating. And then because that specific thing, the thing you want, isn't motivating to them, or the thing that is motivating to you isn't motivating to them, we leap to the binary conclusion that they are not motivated at all. Because they're not motivated to do what I want done, or because they're not motivated to do what you want done, that means by definition, they are not motivated. We are assuming a binary, either motivated or not. The problem is this is an application of these two logical fallacies. Another application or another way of viewing this is the middle ground fallacy. I just gave the either or, the black or white kind of thinking, that either are motivated or they're not. And then the middle ground fallacy also has a binary component to it, where we blend the two extremes into some kind of middle ground that is also probably not true. And we say something like this, well, they're a little bit motivated. They're not very motivated. So we evaluate their level of motivation between two extremes of either motivated or not. And we're missing the point. Motivation is not a binary state. It's not an on-off switch. It's not even a scale of continuum. There are things that motivate us and there are things that don't motivate us. There are things that motivate people on our team. There are things that don't motivate people on our team. And the key as leaders to figure out what those things are and, to the best of our ability, connect with those so that the things that need to get done. Okay. The problem with these are that they're completely bad framing of the problem. And I don't want to imply that we are bad thinkers, and I don't want this to sound critical of you. Like I said, I too struggle with making sure this doesn't creep into my thinking. It's a seductive way of thinking. It's a tricky way of thinking. It pulls you in because it's a simplistic way to look at things. And leaders have to look at things more robustly, less simplistically. And I don't mean to overcomplicate things. Just want to open our mind to thinking about things in a little different way. What we want to do is we want to remember that while a person isn't motivated to do one thing, they are probably motivated to do something else. And in the thing that motivates them is the key to unlocking their motivation. And as I said already, that while they are not motivated to do what you want done, it doesn't mean they are not motivated. The trick is to keep yourself from drifting into this binary mode of thinking that assumes that either are or are not motivated. Now, let me do an aside here and say that I'm not suggesting that there are not situations where a person just doesn't fit the position, or maybe better phrased, the position doesn't fit the person, where no matter what we do, it's just not going to be exciting to them and they're not going to bring their best game to the table. I know that exists. The key is I want to frame it in the context of this is not a good fit rather than you're not a motivated person. Trying to avoid as best I can in my leadership communication, not to make it about the person, instead to make it about the job or the business or the objectives we're trying to reach, and try to stay out of anything that drifts in the direction where, because of being excited about or not excited about the work we're doing, or motivated by or not motivated by the work we're doing, it doesn't cause you to view that person in a negative light, so that we can stay in a positive way of communicating with people and hopefully find that thing or connection to their motivation and the work at hand. Okay, so rather than thinking that they're either not motivated or motivated in a binary sense, or sort of the middle ground where they're between these two states, they're a little bit motivated, and I'm just trying to ramp up their motivation, I want to realize that motivation in this case is not a middle of the road thing. It's not a presence or absence thing. It's I don't understand what motivates them thing. I haven't done the work as a leader to figure out how to connect with them in a way that connects what needs to be done with the things that motivate them. I haven't found the hook that helps them see the value or the importance of this thing I'm asking to do. And as a result, it's missing the mark for this particular person. That's one example, either they're motivated or not. It can happen in other places. These logical fallacies can affect us in cases like where we think that a person either is or is not a good performer. Like that's a binary situation, which is probably not true. There's probably something they're doing right. There's probably something that a person does well, even if it's not everything that needs to be done. So good performer or not good performer isn't necessarily binary. It's more subtle than that. And as I mentioned in a podcast episode several weeks ago, this confusion of kindness and weakness, where you can be kind and strong at the same time. Kind and weak are not binary conditions. They're not even on the same scale. And I got a whole podcast on that point. But even that episode is based around this idea of logical fallacies that creep into our thinking and then can affect how we communicate with other people. So our thinking about others and our thinking about ourselves. In both cases, false binaries that lend themselves to either or thinking, known as the black or white fallacy, or middle of the road, where I'm just kind of blending things that may or may not be true, or they're either both not true, and the middle ground isn't true either. They are both true at the same time, in which case that doesn't necessarily make the middle ground true. It just means that we have two extremes we have to consider. Or one is true and one is not. And so the middle ground fallacy of falsely taking a binary situation and blending it to come up with something we call a truth is not helpful. What we want to do as leaders is recognize that we have to get past false binaries, beware of these logical fallacies, these things that creep into our thinking, these ways of thinking and communicating that get in our way with clear and effective communication, clearly seeing and understanding people, clearly and effectively solving problems, so that we can remain flexible in our thinking and we can start to look beyond the easy surface answers to things and dig a bit more deeply into what's behind a problem, be it either a technical problem or a people problem. We want to consider that there might be more than two answers to this situation. Just because two situations immediately come to mind doesn't mean that's the full extent of the possible answers to this problem. And we want to be aware of the hidden and possibly false assumptions we make when it comes to interacting with people and communicating with people. If we can be aware of false binaries, assuming that there are only two answers, if we can look past the easy surface answers, and if we can look for the possibly false and hidden assumptions in our thinking, you can talk like a leader. This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.